Welcome. Tonight we drift into a world of flickering candlelight, velvet gloves, and the delicate rattle of teacups stirred by hands pretending not to tremble. UVA just arrived at a crumbling Victorian manor, not your usual Airbnb, and the host assures you that a ghost walks the west hallway after sundown. The air smells faintly of coal smoke and lavender soap, and the only real sound is the steady creak of the stairs behind you. You probably won't survive this socially, at least if you dare to mention how silly it all seems. But of course, you don't say that. You've got a notebook, a thick scarf, and just enough skeptical curiosity to pass for a proper 19th century ghost hunter. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're awake enough, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is that. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up the gravel path under a drizzly English moon, notebook tucked under one arm, breath fogging in the cold. This is not just a haunted house, it's a social experiment. Your host, one Sir Marmaduke, something or other, greets you in velvet slippers and a cravat that looks like it might bite. He whispers, conspiratorially, that his aunt has seen the ghost several times. Always at precisely 3:47 a.m. inside. The manor is dim and heavily upholstered. Every piece of furniture has a story, every hallway its own ghostly rumor, and now you are part of that story. You've been invited as a sensitive observer, which mostly means you know how to keep a straight face when someone gasps at a creaky This, you soon realize, is how 19th century ghost hunting often begins, not in dungeons or graveyards, but in parlors, drawing rooms, and country estates that smell of tobacco, aging, books, and pride. And unlike today's ghosters, there's no night vision, camera, or infrared thermometer, just a pocket watch, some candles, and someone's reputation on the line. You and a fellow guest, let's call her Miss Clara Whitby. She has brought along a sketch pad to draw any specters you might encounter. Though she admits she once accidentally sketched a coat rack for 20 minutes, you're impressed by her honesty. Together, you set up a simple vigil. One candle, one glass of water, one notebook, and a pencil that keeps rolling off the table. But you try not to read too much into that. Mainstream historians agree that early ghost hunters were more like curious house guests than serious They were writers, dilettantes, vicars with too much time on their hands. There were no formal societies at first, just cliques of people fascinated by the strange idea that death might not be the end of conversation. The room is cold, but that's not unusual. The curtains flutter, but the window is cracked. Then, at exactly 3:47 a.m., a clock chimes somewhere far off and you both freeze. Was that a knock, or just a radiator groaning with purpose? Did you feel that? Clara whispers, a presence? You want to say it's just the draft, but there's something contagious about her hush. You nod, scribbling uncertain shift in atmosphere in your notebook. This will look very official later. One fringe account written in a now-forgotten ghost journal called The Midnight Bell suggests that early hunters even tried using herbs like wormwood or belladonna to thin the veil. Whether they succeeded or simply made themselves dizzy, historians still argue. By sunrise, the house hasn't changed, but you have. You've started seeing the world in the soft edges of candlelight. The half-murmurs of uncertain guests. The strange certainty that not all silence is empty. You tuck your notebook away and accept your cup of tea from Sir Marmaduke. He smiles, knowingly. No one says the word ghost, but everyone knows you saw something, if only the possibility of it. And that, you realize, is the true start of your ghost hunting career. You reseated in a stiff-backed parlor chair that has been reupholstered at least 4 times since Napoleon's last stand. The fire crackles, the curtains are drawn, and in the middle of the room sits the evening main attraction. Grey eyes, shut hands, spread, and posture suspiciously perfect for someone supposedly in a trance. Across from you, an older gentleman, an Oxford man, of course, is peering closely at a potted fern. They don't. But this is ghost hunting in the 1800s. No EMF meters, just the solemn hope that maybe, just maybe, the fern might twitch at the right moment and confirm everything. The medium exhales sharply. I am here, she says in a voice that is somehow both raspy and theatrical. You try not to smile, because this is serious business. Mesmerist followers of the Franz Mesmer school of magnetism and invisible flows believe that she is channeling more than just drama. They think she is tuning into a spiritual frequency that the rest of you can quite reach. And here's the fun part. You're expected to sit very still, observe carefully, and absolutely, under no circumstances, accuse anyone of putting on a show. Not unless you want to be labeled a cynic, which in some circles is worse than being a fraud. In truth, much of 19th century ghost hunting revolved around people like her, self-styled sensitives, mediums, and trance speakers who claimed to be in touch with the spirit realm. These were the instruments of the aged flesh and blood ghost detectors, and they came with all the calibration issues of your average wind-up clock. There were tests, of course. Some amateur investigators swore by what is known as the potted plant test. A spirit entering the room would, allegedly, cause nearby flora to react, leaves shaking, petals turning. Skeptics noted this happened most often when someone opened a window, but still, many notebooks include detailed leaf sketches and phrases like unusual fern behavior noted at 2:13 a.m. You scribble your own version of this now, just to stay in the spirit. Across from you, the Oxford man has started whispering, "Control," under his breath, as if willing the room into compliance. The medium's head dips. "A boy," she whispers, 6 years old, name starts with P. Of course it's Philip. It's always Philip. This is the strange, theatrical middle ground that ghost hunting occupied in the 19th century. Part performance, part belief, part polite game. And yet every now and then something truly odd did happen. A sudden drop in temperature, a knock no one could trace, a voice small, trembling, and certainly not the medium's murmuring through the dark. Historians still argue whether these incidents were genuine anomalies or well-orchestrated group delusion. But the people present believed, or at least they wanted to. You notice Miss Clara Whitby again, sketching furiously in the corner. You sneak a peek. It's a near-perfect likeness of the medium's tense shoulders. Maybe she's documenting evidence. Or maybe she's just more interested in art than spirits. One quirkier detail emerges when the ends. The medium requests a spoonful of port wine and a slice of soft cheese. She claims it regrounds her after contact with the other side. You find this oddly specific and write it down. Later in the hallway, you overhear the Oxford man debating with another guest over the precise moment the fern began to twitch. They agreed to disagree. This was part of the charm and frustration of ghost hunting in this era. There were no standardized protocols. Each investigator had their own methods, favorite mediums, and pet theories. One gentleman from Edinburgh reportedly brought a barn owl to his, claiming its head movements detected spectral drift. The owl, by most accounts, simply stared at everyone with majestic judgment. But back here in the manor, things are winding down. Candles are snuffed. The medium is tucked into a spare bedroom to recover her faculties. You, meanwhile, walk past the fern, giving it a little nod. "Good work tonight," you whisper. You can't tell if it shudders because of you or the drafty hallway, but either way, you feel like a proper ghost hunter now, sensitive to the strange, respectful of the absurd, and just superstitious enough to avoid stepping on the creaky board near the grandfather clock. You're sitting in near total darkness now, save for the pale flicker of a single taper candle that insists on sputtering like it is nervous. Around you, 6 people hold hands in a ring, fingers clammy, one hand suspiciously strong, and another clearly trying not to giggle. The medium, this time, a well-known gentleman with an outrageous walrus mustache, breathes in deeply and lets out a shuddering moan that suggests either spiritual possession or indiuriete again. But this one's different. It's the physical manifestation variety, the kind where the spirits knock on walls, rearrange the furniture, and occasionally throw the odd spoon. In 19th century ghost hunting circles, this was considered the deluxe experience. You rehear because you've heard this particular group once witnessed a table levitate, while all 6 participants were eating lemon tart. It's always lemon tart, isn't it? Never shepherd's pie. Spirits of the dwelling, the medium intones, make yourselves known. There's a pause, then a knock, then another. It's rhythmic. 3 short, 1 long. You glance at Miss Clara. She's counting them under her breath. Across from you, someone whispers, "Code." They're using a code, of course they are. And not just because spirits were assumed to be oddly proficient in Morse, because ghost hunters of this era desperately wanted structure in their haunt. Random thumps were interesting. Coded messages were proof. Mainstream historians confirm that the 19th century saw a sharp rise in rapping mediums, people who claimed they could summon ghosts who would knock in patterns, usually once for yes and twice for no. Naturally, this lent itself to the most Victorian of pastimes, long-winded questioning. "Is your name Edward?" "Knock." "Were you born here?" "Knock." Do you prefer the upstairs parlor or the garden? Silence. Apparently the ghost was undecided, or had taste. The table beneath your hands begins to tremble, lightly, like it's shivering from embarrassment. Someone gasps. Did you feel that? You did. But the tremble aligns perfectly with the leg of the gentleman next to you, who's bobbing his foot like he's waiting for the loo. Still, you say nothing. The spell mustn't be broken. One fringe account from 1867 describes in which the spirit of a deceased baker rearranged all the chairs into a perfect spiral. While the participants sat in stunned silence, historians still argue whether this was ghostly behavior or a drunken prank, involving a local art student with a flair for choreography. Meanwhile, the medium begins to sway. He's here, he whispers. The master of the house. He wants the clock set back. That's convenient, you think, especially since the clocks just changed last week. But you lean in, playing your part. Ghost hunting was as much about performance as it was belief. The room, the candlelight, the mystery, that created a space where anything could happen, even if nothing did. Someone asks, "What's his name?" The medium pauses. Algernon. It's always out. Suddenly a spoon slides off the table and clatters to the floor. Everyone freezes. Your heart races. You glance down. The floor is slanted. The spoon has merely obeyed gravity. But still, everyone murmurs, a moment has passed. It is now part of the narrative. Later, you'll help rearrange the furniture, returning it to its original positions. No one says it outright, but you all agree something felt different. The sofa did seem oddly resolute. Here's a little-known tidbit. Some ghost hunters believed spirits had favorite chairs. If you sat in the wrong one, you might offend them. Hence the widespread Victorian habit of labeling seats with little brass plaques. For guests only, reserved for Lady Agnes, or simply, please don't sit. You walk through the hall after the session, running your hand along the wooden railing. It's smooth, worn down by decades of handsome living. Some allegedly less so. You think about how these experiences, these rituals, these delicate little shows, weren't just about proving ghosts existed. They were about controlling the unknown, creating a format for the formless, giving shape to fear. And in the quiet that follows when the candlelight fades and the knocks have stopped, you realize how comforting it is to believe the spirits play by rules. You blow out your candle. It gasps and dies. For a moment, you think you hear a footstep in the dark, or maybe it's just your own. You wake early the next morning, and the manor feels entirely different in daylight. The table now looks like what it really is, slightly warped. Oak, 3 legs shorter than the 4th, and covered in tiny scratches that suggest decades of teacups, not tortured spirits. But that doesn't stop you from studying it closely, just in case it bears a spectral fingerprint, or a ghost's elbow print, or anything faintly unexplainable. Today is for investigation, not the dramatic, candlelit kind, but the quieter sort. Interviews, measurements, and careful note. Ghost hunting in the 19th century wasn't just about sitting in the dark waiting for a tap. It involves documentation, too. You down your overcoat and gather your tools, quill, ink, a leather-bound journal with slightly pretentious embossing, and prepare to play detective. You start with the servants. In most Victorian homes, it was the servants who had the best ghost stories. Why? Because they were the ones awake at odd hours, walking the corridors alone, and noticing the icy cold spots that defied explanation. So you find the housekeeper, Mrs. Ellis, and ask whether she's ever experienced anything unusual. She eyes you suspiciously. Depends, she says. Do you mean mice or moaning? Preferably the latter, you reply. She snorts. The second floor, linen, cupboard. Always cold. Smells like lavender and vinegar when no one's been near it. You jot this down, though it raises more laundry questions than ghostly ones. Next to butler. He tells you about the shadow, which he's only seen from the corner of his eye, and only when he's polishing the silver. It always moves left to right, never the other way. He's confident it's the late Lady Whitby who used to favor left-handed entrances. You smile politely. Then there's the kitchen Medelsi. Once, when she was rolling pastry at dawn, the flour tin lifted and dropped 6 inches to the right. Historians still argue whether ghostly repositioning of ingredients constitutes poltergeist activity, or just shoddy Either way, she won't go into the pantry alone now. You decide to inspect the pantry yourself. It's cold, musty. You sneeze. There is, disappointingly, no levitating flour, but on the shelf, You find a strange little token, an old playing card tucked between a spice jar and a jar of preserved cherries. It's the Queen of Spades. You pocket it. This sort of slow, domestic detective work formed the backbone of many real ghost hunting investigations. The famed Society for Psychical Research, founded in 1882, sent dozens of their members into manor homes, pubs, and ancient cottages across Britain with very similar routines. Interview locals, record the layout of the building, mark cold spots, and listen for any recurring legends. You step outside to clear your head. The grounds are misty, the air damp, with that morning chill particular to the English countryside. The gardener waves as he clips a hedge into what you think might be a goose. You know, he calls, they say, the statue by the pond changes where it's facing. Of course it does. It's always statue. You wander over. The statue is of a nymph, or possibly an extremely elegant shepherd. It's moss-covered, weathered, and facing due east. You decide to check again at dusk. Back inside, Miss Clara is arranging her sketches. She shows you a new one, an eerily accurate sketch of last night's spoon mid-slide. "I can't explain it," she says softly, "but I didn't draw that from memory. I drew it in the moment." You ask what she means. She hesitates. "I wasn't looking at the spoon," she says, "but I drew it anyway." Now that's interesting. Some 19th century investigators believed in automatic drawing, the idea that a spirit could guide someone's hand during art or writing. The practice was often dismissed by critics as subconscious movement, but still, it appeared again and again in reports. Miss Clara, it seems, may be unknowingly participating in this exact phenomenon. You jot down another note, and then something strikes you. Your handwriting has changed slightly over the past hour, slanted more steeply, less looping. You pause. Is it your imagination? Or are you being ... guided? You laugh at yourself, a little nervously, but you underline the word guided. Just in case, because that's the core of this whole ghost hunting endeavor, those little uncertainties, the things you can't quite explain, but can't fully dismiss. Was it wind, a creaky floorboard, or a message from beyond? You close your journal for now and tuck it under your arm. It's nearly time for the afternoon tian today. It's being held in the second-floor salon, right next to the infamous linen cupboard. And no, you're not going in there. Not without a proper excuse. Maybe something to do with lavender. You arrive at the second-floor salon to find that the tea tray has already been laid out, complete with scones, raspberry preserves, and a very nervous footman who keeps glancing toward the corridors, specifically toward the linen cupboard. You don't need to be psychic to sense tension in a room. You settle into a her-backed chair by the window. Miss Clara is already sketching again, this time the corridors, though she expects something to appear. You sip your tea. The butler's shadow glides past the doorway with theatrical care, as if hoping not to provoke invisible forces. So far, so quiet. And yet, there's a pressure in the air, that subtle, breathless sensation ghost hunters knew well. The prelude to a manifestation. That's the term they use, not a haunting, not an appearance, but a manifestation. It suggested something in process, like bread rising or a rash developing. In 19th century parlance, a manifestation could mean anything from flickering gas lamps to full-blown spectral drama, but often it began just like this, with tension. You rise, napkin in hand, like a makeshift talisman, and approach the linen cupboard. It creaks open slowly, revealing only neatly folded sheets, an overwhelming whiff of lavender, and something else. Vinegar. Mrs. Ellis wasn't lying. The scent is sharp, unmistakable. A cleaning agent, perhaps, or something older. You reach inside gingerly and your fingers brush against a small wooden object tucked behind a stack of monogrammed pillowcases. You pull it out, not attached to a Ouija board. Mind ethos won't become mass market until 1890, but a standalone planchette. The kind used for automatic writing. It's triangular, with a hole for a pencil and small brass wheels. A tingle creeps across your shoulders, because this means someone recently or long ago was attempting spirit communication in private. Hidden. Maybe even forbidden. You bring it back to the salon and lay it on the table. Miss Clara gasps softly. "That's very old," she murmurs. You both stare at it. Then she pulls her journal toward her and begins to write, not sketch. This time, just one word. She looks at the writing and blinks, as if seeing it for the first time. "I don't remember doing that," she says. You both say nothing more for a moment. Outside, a crow calls once and is immediately shushed by the afternoon hush. According to the psychical research records, objects like this planchette were taken very seriously. Investigators would often isolate such items in locked boxes, wrap them in silk, and sometimes, if they were especially superstitious, sprinkle them with holy water or salt. You do none of that. Instead, you bring the planchette downstairs to show the rest of the group. The response is immediate and predictably split. The medium, of course, insists it's a sign that the house wants to speak again. Mrs. Ellis mutters something about inviting trouble, and one gentleman with round spectacles and a notebook too large for his lap suggests you try using it. You are predictably volunteered. So now it's evening again. The parlor has been dimmed, the doors locked, and you sit before the small planchette on a side table, a blank sheet of paper beneath your hand. You steady your breath, place your fingers lightly on the wood, and wait. At first, nothing. Then, the faintest tug. It moves. Not much, but enough to jolt your nerves. You swallow. Let it guide you. Letters begin to form jagged, looping, nonsensical at first. But then, M-Y-N-M-E, you stop. The room is silent, your breath loud in your ears. Keep going. Someone whispers. You do. The planchette glides slowly. Of course it's Algernon again. Everyone sighs it might be a coincidence, or muscle memory, or collective suggestion. Historians still argue whether automatic writing is evidence of subconscious creativity or external influence. Freud, for example, leaned toward the former. Spirit mediums naturally preferred the latter. You set the planchette aside. It sits heavy on the page, like it knows something. Miss Clara stands. She touches your shoulder lightly and says, "Thank you. That was something. It was... even if it wasn't. Because that's the trick of ghost hunting, and this irrit didn't he need to prove anything. It only needed to provoke that glimmer of wonder, that quiet uncertainty, that one moment in which the veil between what is and what might be feels very, very thin. Later, as you lie in bed, you realize the scent of lavender still clings to your fingers, and faintly, just faintly, the word listen echoes in your head, not loudly, not urgently, just gently. And you do. Morning creeps in like a shy butler quiet. You're already awake, though you can't quite say why. The manor is still in that heavy, padded way that suggests the world is catching its breath. No birds yet, no clinking dishes, just that familiar lavender trace and the sound of your own heartbeat reminding you. You used a planchette last night. You rise, carefully, as though waking too abruptly might disturb whatever's still hanging in the air from yesterday. Today's task: observe, record, compare. You are, after all, a 19th century ghost hunter, more accurately, a psychical investigator. Not every day can be candles and whisper. Some days involve pacing rooms with measuring tape, tracking barometric pressure, and diagramming sightings on parchment with far too many arrows. Breakfast is a stiff affair. Miss Clara eats toast without speaking. The butler keeps glancing at the drawing-room doorway like it might develop opinions. And you're waiting for the medium. When she finally appears, she's pale. Not dramatic fainting, pale. Just tired. "I dreamt of a fire," she says softly. "In the west wing." The walls were melting like wax. You raise your eyebrows. That wing hasn't been used in decades. And yes, if this were a novel, that's precisely where you'd go next. And because this is ghost hunting, not gardening, that's exactly where you go next. The west wing is locked, but Mrs. Ellis hands over the key with an expression that says she does not want it back. You trek down the hallway, the carpet muffling your steps, the wallpaper peeling slightly at the corners like it's trying to whisper something. You unlock the door. Inside, the air changes. It's warmer than the rest of the house. Not in a cozy way, more like a sunbeam that overstayed its welcome. Dust motes hover thick in the light as you step inside. There's a grand old writing desk, a shattered tea tray, and in the corner, a small iron fireplace. Charred ashes still sit in the grate. You approach. There's something in the ash, burnt nearly black. You pick it up. It's warm. Still. That's not how fireplaces work. Not if they haven't been used in years. You note this in your journal. The coin, the ash, the warmth. Also, the faint scent of burnt rosemary. Oddly specific, oddly persistent. Historians still argue whether certain scents, lavender, rosemary, were more likely to accompany paranormal events, or if they simply lingered from the potpourri bowls favored by the overly hygienic Victorians. Still, this feels fresh. You hear a creak behind you. You turn sharply, but it's only Miss Clara, peering in through the doorway. "I think," she says, "this was someone's study." You both scan the room again. The high shelves, the ink stains on the floorboards, the broken spectacles on the chair arm, a scholar's space, and on the far wall, something drawn in charcoal barely visible, now a strange symbol. Circular, with jagged lines crisscrossing the interior. You trace it with your finger. Later, when you show it to the group, the medium gasps. "That's a binding mark," she says. "It keeps something in or out." Either way, this discovery changes the tone of the investigation. Now, everyone's on edge. Back in the salon, you begin your more analytical duties, mapping out where each reported manifestation occurred, creating a timeline of sounds, smells, and shadowy figures. A surprisingly modern process. Really, even in the 1800s, ghost hunters loved a good chart. You record the pantry incident, the linen cupboard, the planchette session, the warm coin, the charcoal symbol, and then you notice something odd. All these moments occur in a spiral pattern, starting in the pantry, curving up through the second floor, looping into the west wing. You trace it on the map. It's unmistakable. A spiral, like something moving inward, or trying to get out. You stare at it for longer than is reasonable. Is this meaningful? A pattern of energy? A ghost's path? Or are you simply drawing significance from coincidence? This is where 19th century ghost hunters often got lost on the border between data and drama. The Society for Psychical Research warned its members not to let emotion override evidence, but they also encouraged openness to the unknowable. You, of course, decide to lean in. That evening, you propose a silent watch. No speaking. Just everyone positioned at key points along the spiral, keeping notes. No influencing each other. No bias. It feels properly scientific and a little bit terrifying. You take the pantry. Miss Clara takes the salon. The medium chooses the linen cupboard, brave soul, and as the clock chimes midnight, everyone is in place. The silence is unsettling, not peaceful, not eerie, just filled with the weight of collective expectation. You sit, you wait. Your candle flickers, and then a sound. A soft metallic clink, like a coin. But it doesn't hit the floor. It lands somewhere behind the flour tin. You lean forward, slowly, carefully, and there it is. Another coin, identical to the one in the west wing. Still, you pick up the second coin with a mix of curiosity and a creeping sense of unease. Warm to the touch, just like the first. You glance around the pantry, half expecting the air to shimmer, or for a whisper to tickle your ear. But there's only silence, and the faint scent of rosemary lingering stubbornly in the corners. This is the moment you realize ghost hunting is as much about patience as it is about spectacle. You're not chasing booming voices or flailings. You're following these little breadcrumbs, warm coins, faint scents, unexplained sounds. Miss Clara joins you shortly after, holding her journal tightly. She flips to the latest page and points to a sketch on oddly shaped figure. Half human. "I don't remember drawing this," she says softly, a hint of both wonder and worry in her voice. "It just appeared." Automatic drawings like hers were common among psychical researchers of the time, believed to be the medium's subconscious trying to communicate perhaps something else. Historians still debate whether these images are projections of the artist's mind, or genuine glimpses into the unknown. You decide to let the question hang in the air for now. You carry the coins and the sketches back to the group, who are gathered in the salon. The atmosphere feels charged, but no one dares speak first. Instead, the medium pulls out a battered volume of spiritualist writings, flipping to a passage about tokens of passaged objects left behind by spirits to signal their presence. "Coins," she says, "are often used in folklore to pay the ferryman. Maybe these are clues, or invitations." You can't help but smirk at the idea of ghosts needing to cover their transit fees. But the warmth of the coins says otherwise. They're fresh, active. You take notes carefully. Observations like these, the physical evidence of coins, the recurring sense, the automatic drawings are what differentiate serious 19th century investigations from campfire ghost stories. It's the era's version of CSI, but with more incense and fewer safety protocols. Later, you overhear a debate between the gentlemen investigators about the role of emotion in the. One argues that emotions cloud judgment, while the other insists that spirits feed off the emotional energy of the living. Both sides have merit, and both add layers of mystery to your nightly vigil. As the day wanes, you start to piece together a pattern. The warmth of the coins, the spiral of manifestations. The binding symbols suggest a presence tied to this house's past, restless, yet restrained. You wonder, is the ghost hunter's job to prove the supernatural exists, or simply to bear witness to its lingering traces? That night, you find yourself lying awake, the lavender scent still faint in your nostrils. You hear the creak of floorboards downstairs, a reminder that the manor holds secrets, and your investigation has only. The next morning greets you with a soft drizzle, the kind of gentle rain that blurs edges and makes the world feel wrapped in a muted blanket. It's perfect weather for staying inside and sifting through old documents, and, as any seasoned 19th century ghost hunter knows, paperwork is half the job. You gather the assorted journals, letters, and ledgers that Mrs. Ellis has been kind enough to provide. There is something deliciously Victorian about the way dust motes dance in the light as you flip through the fragile pages, each one a whisper from the past. One particular letter catches your eye. It's penned in Elegonic script by a former resident named Algonius, the same name your planchette spelled out. He writes about his fascination with spirits bound to this home and his experiments to communicate with them. The letter hints at a tragic accident involving the fireplace in the West Wing, something the manor's history glosses over. You lean in closer, tracing the words with a finger as if the ink might reveal more if touched gently enough. The letter also mentions a protective mark drawn in charcoal, meant to keep a certain spirit contained. You recall the jagged circle on the wall, and suddenly, the pieces start fitting together like an old puzzle. Curiously, Algernon's letter ends with a note about a silver talisman lost during one of his sessions, something said to hold power over the restless. You scribble this down, wondering if it's connected to the warm coins and the strange sensations around the house. As you ponder, the medium approaches with a soft smile. She shares a curious anecdote about Victorian mourning rituals, how some families would place coins in the mouths of the deceased to pay the toll across the afterlife. Perhaps the coins in the pantry in West Wing are echoes of this custom, carried into the present. Historians still argue whether such superstitions genuinely influenced hauntings, or were simply cultural artifacts layered onto natural phenomena. You file this away with the others' theories piling up like autumn leaves. By afternoon, you decide it's time for another round of experiment. This time, more focused, less theatrical. The group gathers in a study, and you lay out a map of the house with markers indicating reported manifestations. You suggest testing temperature changes and air currents, practical methods favored by serious investigators of the era, using a simple mercury thermometer and an open window for baseline readings. You start noting anomalies. Surprisingly, the West Wing consistently records a few degrees higher than the rest of the manor, even on cool days. This isn't just superstition anymore. It's measurable. You smile to yourself, proof that some mysteries might be grounded in physics, not fantasy. Later, Miss Clara shares another automatic sketch, this one depicting a shadowy figure holding a coin. It's both eerie and oddly comforting, like a bedtime story told in whispers. As twilight falls, you prepare for another silent watch. The rain outside patters softly, a natural white noise that somehow feels like an ally. You settle into your spot near the fireplace, the warmth still faint but unmistakable. Fingers crossed, you wait, heart steady, mind alert, ready to listen to whatever secrets the manor might. The night settles in again, wrapped in the soft cloak of mist and whispers. You sit quietly in the study, eyes half closed, the warmth from the fireplace teasing your skin like a gentle, secret touch. Outside, the rain taps a slow, steady rhythm against the windows, a lullaby for the restless. Minutes stretch, and you find your thoughts wandering. You recall the curious debates among your fellow investigators. Some claim spirits require intense emotional focus to manifest. Others argue that skepticism weakens the veil between worlds. You wonder if the truth is somewhere in between, suspended like the dust motes dancing in the candlelight. A sudden shift pulls you back. The mercury in your thermometer dips slightly, just a fraction, but enough to catch your trained eye. The air thickens, like a soft curtain descending. You hear it, then a faint sigh, like breath caught between worlds. You lean forward, steadying your breath, the hairs on your arms rising without shame. The medium's eyes flutter open suddenly, her hand tightening on the table. She whispers a phrase you don't quite catch, something in an archaic dialect, her voice barely audible. Your pen moves to the journal, capturing every moment. The room seems to pulse gently, the shadows deepening without swallowing the light. Then, from the corner, a soft metallic clink echoes another coin, falling silently. You glance toward the sound, heart tapping a nervous rhythm. There, near the baseboard, lies the familiar dark coin, warm, waiting. Miss Clara edges closer, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. The medium murmurs that these coins might be offering tokens left by spirits to bridge worlds. Historians still debate whether such physical tokens were standard ritual or spontaneous manifestations, a question that fuels late-night discussions over tea and tobacco. You pocket the coin carefully, feeling its warmth against your palm. It's strange, almost comforting, like holding a secret handshake from the other side. Later, the group shares quiet observations and usual sounds, fleeting glimpses of shadow, that recurring scent of rosemary hanging like a gentle memory. The house breathes with history, sorrow, and something else, a restless hope. Before turning in for the night, you gaze once more at the charcoal symbol. Its lines seem less jagged now, almost deliberate, like a protective embrace rather than a trap. You wonder if, after all this, the spirits aren't so much imprisoned as they are waiting for acknowledgement, understanding, or perhaps a little company. And with that thought, you finally let sleep claim you. The manor's secrets whispering softly as the rain continues its. Dawn leaks through the curtains, pale and hesitant, like a nervous guest unsure of its welcome. You wake slowly, the memories of last night still draped around you like a fog. The warmth of the coin pressed to your palm is gone, but the mystery lingers, persistent as the morning mist. Today, you decide to dig deeper into the manor's past because no ghost story is complete without a little history. You set off to the local archives, a dusty room filled with brittle newspapers and leather-bound ledgers, the kind of place that smells of old paper and forgotten secrets. Sifting through records, you discover the manor was once home to the Harrington family, wealthy and well-connected, but marked by tragedy. A fire in the West Wing years ago claimed to leave the young Algernon Harrington, the very man who penned the letter you read. His death was ruled accidental, yet rumors whispered of a strange presence in the house ever since. You find references to a silver talisman passed down as a family heirloom, said to protect against evil spirits, but mysteriously lost after Algernon's demise. You file this information carefully. It fits the pieces. You've gathered the coins, the warmth, the binding symbol. Perhaps the talisman's loss unleashed the restless energy you're tracking. Historians still debate whether such talismans had real power or were simply comforting symbols for grieving families. You, however, feel the weight of their significance as you finger the edges of an old family portrait is staring out, knowing and watchful. Back at the manor, the air feels heavier, charged with unspoken histories. You share your findings with a group who listen with rapt attention. The medium nods thoughtfully, suggesting tonight's might focus on Algernon, hoping to make contact or, at least, understand his unrest. Preparations begin, candles lit, cushions arranged, and the planchette polished. You feel a familiar mixture of anticipation and skepticism, a delicate balance every investigator must maintain. As night falls, the manor seems to hold its breath once more, waiting for your next move in this dance between the living. The candles flicker softly, casting long shadows that sway gently across the walls. You settle into the circle with the others, the planchette poised like a silent conductor waiting to lead a symphony of spirits. Your pulse slows to match the deliberate rhythm of the room. You place your fingers lightly on the planchette's edges, feeling the subtle vibrations of collective breath and hope. The medium begins to speak in a low, steady voice, calling out to Algernon's name, slipping into the quiet like a secret whispered through centuries. Minutes pass. At first there's only silence, save for the occasional creak of the old house settling. Then, the planchette stirs, trembling almost imperceptibly beneath your fingertips. Letters begin to form, slow and hesitant, spelling out a message. Lost. Silver, protect. You feel a chill, not unpleasant, threading through the room. It's as if Algernon is reaching out from beyond, trying to tell his story. The medium describes seeing flickers of a shadowy figure near the fireplace, the very place where tragedy struck. You recall the warmth there, the coins, the charcoal symbol. It all feels connected, a puzzle, unfolding piece by fragile piece. Historians still argue whether such were genuine communications or subconscious group phenomena. You remain open, leaning into the mystery with a curious heart. Suddenly, a soft metallic clink interrupts the silencer. Third coin drops onto the floor, warm like the others, as if carried by invisible hands. You glance around. No one moves or speaks. The room holds its breath. You carefully place the coins in a row, on unspoken tally of contact, proof of something beyond your understanding. The medium closes her eyes, murmuring a prayer for peace and protection, reminding you all that these encounters, while thrilling, carry a gentle responsibility. You nod, feeling a newfound respect for the delicate balance between curiosity and care in this 19th century dance with the unknown. As the candles gutter low, you settle back, the whispers of the past swirling softly around you, coaxing you gently toward dreams filled with mysteries and quiet revel. Morning arrives with a pale light that filters softly through heavy curtains, casting a sleepy haze over the manor's worn wooden floors. You wake with a lingering sense of wonder and, admittedly, a bit of exhaustion. Ghost hunting is harder work than it looks, especially when your job involves waiting for the slightest sign or sound that could be anything odd. Today you'll decide to turn your attention to the tools of the trade, those curious instruments your 19th century counterparts favored. You gather thermometers, magnets, dowsing rods, and even early photographic equipment, dusty relics that once promised to capture proof of spirits. You run your fingers over the delicate glass of the thermometers, recalling the persistent temperature anomalies in the West Wing. The idea that cold spots might indicate a ghostess presence was popular, then and still fascinates some modern researchers. But skeptics argue these drops in temperature often have mundane causes like drafts or faulty instruments. Historians still debate whether these tools ever truly captured anything paranormal, or merely reflected the era's hopes and fears. Setting up the early camera is an adventure in itself. You position it facing the fireplace, the scene of so many strange occurrences. The camera's slow shutter speed requires patience, a virtue you're beginning to appreciate more each day. As the camera clicks softly, you reflect on how Victorian ghost hunters blended science and superstition in equal measure. They were pioneers of sorts, trying to make sense of the unseen with the best technology their time could offer, even if that meant inviting skepticism from peers and ridicule from society. You take a break, wandering through the manor's dim corridors, noticing the creaks and groans that are part of its character. You smile, remembering a fellow investigator's joke about how old houses are just ghost hunters, best friends, or perhaps the original haunted influencer. Later, you experiment with dowsing rods, traditional tools believed to react to unseen energies. You hold the rods lightly, trying to steady your nerves as they twitch and sway, teasing your mind to find meaning. The day closes with a growing appreciation for the blend of curiosity, hope, and method that defined these early investigators, people who walk the line between science and myth, searching for answers in shadow and light. As night falls again, you ready yourself for what the darkness might reveal next. The manor breathes softly in the quiet evening, its ancient timbers creaking like whispered secret. You return to the West Wing, drawn once more to the fireplace, the heart of so many mysteries. Tonight, you decide to explore the auditory side of things after all. Ghost hunters often reported strange sounds, from distant footsteps to low murmurs. You set up a primitive recording device, a curious contraption designed to capture the faintest noises in the stillness. The device crackles with static, and you smile at the RNE, trying to catch the ethereal through crackles and pops of old technology. As you wait, your mind drifts to the peculiar Victorian fascination with spirit voices and spirit rapping, the soft tapping believed to be communication from beyond. Some would use these taps to spell out messages on early form of ghostly Morse code, if you will. Interestingly, you learn that many of these sounds had earthly explanations: creaky, settling houses, or even playful pranksters. Historians still argue whether any recorded sounds truly originated from spirits or were products of overactive imaginations and faulty equipment. Your device picks up a faint tapping sound just as you settle into your chair. It's subtle, rhythmic, and impossible to ignore. You pause, listening with all your senses. The tapping seems to echo a heartbeat, steady and slow, like the manor itself is alive and trying to speak. The medium nearby whispers softly, encouraging the group to respond, to tap back gently on the table. A tentative exchange begins, a delicate dance of sound and silence, connection across the veil. You chuckle softly, thinking how different this is from modern ghost hunting with fancy gadgets and night vision cameras. Back then, it was all about patience, presence, and the willingness to listen. As the night deepens, the manor seems to hum with a quiet energy. A gentle reminder that sometimes the most profound encounters are the ones that happen in the spaces between words and sounds. You leave the West Wing feeling a little more connected to the house, its history, and the curious souls who once. The next morning dawns clear and crisp, the kind of day that invites fresh perspectives and bold questions. You decided it's time to look beyond the manor itself and explore the broader world of 19th century ghost hunting because, as you know, your little haunted house is just one chapter in a much larger story. You pull out a battered notebook filled with accounts from across Europe and America, reports of ghostly sightings in drawing rooms and the rise of spirit photography. It is fascinating to see how this era's ghost hunters shared a common toolkit of hope, science, and spectacle. One quirky fact stands out. Some investigators carried spirit trumpets, cone-shaped devices said to amplify ghostly voices. It's almost comical to imagine Victorian ladies and gentlemen earnestly passing these cones around, listening for whispers from the beyond. Historians still debate whether spirit trumpets ever truly worked or were just clever tricks to heighten the dramaland, perhaps. Encourage generous donations from wealthy clients. You also discover the role of photography pioneers, who sometimes staged ghostly apparitions using double expose as a precursor to modern Photoshop. These images fascinated the public and fueled debates about what could be believed and what was simply clever artifice. You reflect on how ghost hunting in the 19th century was a unique blend of earnest belief and showmanship, driven by a cultural fascination with death, the afterlife, and the limits of human knowledge. Back at the manor, you consider how your own experiences echo these larger patterns. The mix of skepticism and wonder, the delicate balance of science and spirit. As evening falls, you feel a sense of kinship with those early ghost hunters, curious souls who looked beyond the veil, hoping to find a glimpse of what lies beyond, while never fully leaving the world they knew. You settle in for one last night's vigil, ready to listen, to watch, and perhaps to finally understand a little more about the shadows that linger in this ancient house. Night drapes itself gently over the manor once more, the familiar hush settling like a soft blanket. You prepare for this final vigil with a sense of quiet reverence, aware that your journey through these halls, through history, and through the whispers of the past is nearing its end. You gather the group once again, the flickering candlelight reflecting in their eyes, some tired, some hopeful, all captivated by the lingering mysteries. Tonight feels different, heavier with expectation, yet lighter with a peaceful calm that has grown over your time here. As you sit quietly, the medium begins her invocation, a soothing murmur weaving through the room. You close your eyes, breathing deeply, tuning into the subtle rhythms of the manor, the distant drip of water, the soft rustle of leaves outside, the almost imperceptible hum of unseen presence. The planchette moves slowly this time, deliberate and steady, spelling out a message that seems less urgent, more like a farewell, rest, peace, time. A gentle warmth spreads through the room, the shadows retreating slightly as if the house itself exhales a long-held breath. You think back to the coins, the symbols, the recordings, and the voices, each a thread in the delicate tapestry of this haunting. Historians still debate whether these phenomena were glimpses of another realm or manifestations of grief and memory. But for you, the experience transcends simple explanation. As the concludes, a serene quiet settles, wrapping the manor in a soft embrace. You rise slowly, feeling the weight of the night lift, replaced by a gentle stillness. Outside, the stars shine steadily, indifferent yet comforting in their constancy. You step onto the porch, the cool air brushing your face, carrying away the remnants of fear and wonder alike. This house, with all its secrets and stories, has offered you a glimpse into a world both strange and familiar, a reminder that history is alive, breathing softly just beneath the surface of what we see. You take one last look back, a smile playing at your lips, and turn toward the dawn. Now, as the night's adventures settle gently into memory, you feel the tension ease from your shoulders, the shadows softening into a calm embrace. The manor's whispers fade into the quiet hum of your own breath, slow and steady like the gentle waves of a peaceful sea. The warmth of the candles and the soft rustling of leaves outside become lullabies, coaxing your mind to wander into restful dreams. Remember, the unknown is not always to be feared. Sometimes, it's simply waiting patient, quiet, like a gentle friend sitting nearby. Your journey through these ghostly tales is a reminder that history is not just in books, but in every creak, every shadow, and every silent moment. Let yourself drift now, carried by the calm rhythms of night, the stories tucked safely away like cherished keepsake. And when sleep finally claims you, may it be deep and soothing, filled with the gentle comfort of having walked, if only for a while, alongside spirits of the past. Good night.